And welcome back to another episode of Beardos Media. You know, every time we start a new episode, there's always this dilemma in the mind as to how the introduction should be.
Yes.
So, but the thing is, on this occasion, we had already decided what the topic was going to be. And today's topic is going to be on parenting. I don't know if any of you guys are parents or going to become parents or are parents now of children who are all grown up and flown the nest. But this is going to be an interesting one because it seems that in contemporary times, especially given the circumstances with lockdowns and stuff, a lot more people have had the opportunity to spend more time at home with their kids or with their families. And it's added a different kind of a dimension into the whole parenting theme or the whole parenting thing in general. So I don't know. I mean, are we going to qualify what we mean by parent in the first place? Is it just is biological parents we're talking about, or people who are in that nucleus kind of a family setup where they've got children living with them? Can it be carers? Can it be foster parents? What kind of parents are we referring to here?
Parenting. Okay, so parenting can be done by, well, pretty much anyone. It's not, it doesn't have to be biological. It's the act or the performing the duties of a parent, isn't it?
Yeah, to perform
now,
the duties.
It's funny because you say that through the lockdown and everything, people have had the opportunity to spend more time with their kids and more time, as a family unit. Whereas I'm sure a lot of people would word it very different. They've had to.
Well, they have had to, haven't they?
Yeah. I don't know if
the reality is.
I don't know if everybody would call it an opportunity.
Okay.
It was daunting at first, wasn't it?
Not to me.
No,
not at all.
Generally speaking,
yeah,
it scared the life out of a lot of people. I remember the kind of Facebook posts and, the whole furlough kicking in and the entire family, because the lockdown in March was very different to what it is now. If anything, I would say now is it a lockdown? Are we locked down?
We were talking about this on the way here. I don't see people actually thinking about or feeling that this is a lockdown like it used to, it was in the first instance, the first lockdown.
Yeah.
I can't see it the same way. I don't feel that people are taking it like they were taking it before, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it's been a while though. If you start from March, where are we? April, May, June, July. We're coming up to the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, there's only so much scaremongering stuff you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, true. True. But I think the core question here is, look, for those people who have responsibility over children, right now, there are so many things going on in people's mind, the mental health issues. People feel they're being locked down. The word lockdown itself is quite intimidating for some people, feeling restrictive. No, but if you think about the impact it's had, I mean, take Burton, for example, the number of incidents that have happened in the last few weeks. Yes. Out on the road, violence, involving young people, drugs related, crime related. Do you think people are trying to kind of, they feel that they've got to now fight their way out of this or something? How what are your thoughts on that?
I think people have took it upon themselves to restore some kind of normality now. There's only so many times you can wait for Boris's latest announcement. To be fair, there's only so much patience, as a human being you can have for this guy and his announcements and his U-turns and everything else. So I get it. I understand where people are coming from when they kind of take it upon themselves to say, you know what, I'm going to leave the house. We're going to go out. We're going to extend our bubble or expand our bubble. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But coming back to parents, they've had it tough. Because you know what? Work is often seen as an escape for, when you're so many people in the house.
I think that depends on what kind of parent you are. I think for some people, if they really find it a challenge to parent their kids or look after the kids, again, depending on the age group of the kids, surely they will embrace the opportunity of spending more time with their kids.
See, that's not it though. I don't agree with that. I don't think that they struggle or they find parenting daunting. I just think
This is the whole
they're of the understanding that
the
they don't
family
need to
makeup.
be under the same roof 24 hours a day in order to parent their children. And
now they have to take the responsibility of educating them and doing the homework and
yeah,
all
that was
kind of
was
stuff.
on and off as well, wasn't it? Whereas everything was kind of it was defined. Everybody had their roles. The teachers played a role. You played your role. Your your football coach or your karate instructor, and everyone else.
Well, that's
And suddenly you're
yeah.
everything for
Okay.
this child.
I think in that situation it's going to be different. I guess when people are going to have to parent their kids in a lockdown situation, it's different. Well, let's look at it from a wider perspective. Not everyone's going to be in lockdown all the time. At some point, we're going to get out of this, and kids are back at school, right? Kids are back at school, especially in England.
Some of them.
Well, most of them are. Let's look at it from a holistic or a wider point of view in terms of parenting itself. My question is, how do you know that your parenting is going well? What are the signs you look for in children, or what do you observe in your children to establish or try to understand that, you know what, I'm a good parent, or I'm getting this right, or I've done this well. What are the kind of signs, or what are the things that you see in children which make you recognize that, you know what, things are going well?
It comes back to your own definition of success.
True.
If you were to ask 10 people, would they consider themselves a good parent? Most of them, would be able to say yes or no quite clearly, but their reasons for doing so would vary.
Yeah, or depending on what their standards are.
Not everybody sets out to do the same thing. Parenting is it's like the umbrella, isn't it? But then underneath that, everybody's going to have their own ways of parenting, their own ways of defining whether they're successful, their own ways of saying, you know what, I raised my kids good. In
your mind, what defines us? How would you define successful parenting? What in your mind would mean I've raised my kids good?
I wouldn't even want to say or speak for the masses.
No, forget the masses. You personally.
Generally speaking,
yeah.
I think there's too much emphasis on their academic achievements. I think it's just overemphasized. It's exaggerated. I've heard and I've seen parents of really good kids. When I say kids, I'm talking of all ages, from 6-7 years old to 16, 17. And they'll slate their kids because they're not doing well in school, or they're not getting the grades that they'd imagine, or
they're not getting the grades which their cousins are getting, or their neighbors getting.
Worse,
yeah, which is worse.
Or this child who's never even thought about going into medicine or accounting or engineering, but the parents have, because they've always had it in the back of their mind, but now he's flunked biology, and they're like, nah, I did something wrong, or he doesn't listen, she doesn't listen, and there's all this. And I think that's way overemphasized. That's one thing that I think is quite categorically clear.
There's another danger in that. When parents are emphasizing education to such a degree, they are actually, if there's not a balance, they're forcing the kids to become somewhat reclusive.
Yeah.
The other danger is, if you've got a child who's being pressurized to perform academically, then what message are you really sending them if it's kind of enforced to such a degree that your life is revolved around their education, their life is revolved around their education, they're having to spend extra time in education at home as well as school. It's a very selfish little bubble that they've created for this child.
Yes.
My take on it is that when a child, if there's not a balance, I'll caveat that again by saying, if there's not a balance of a good social balance, social life, as well as the academic life, then there's an issue, a deeper underlying issue created for this child. Your expectations of this child have risen so high that you're expecting them to perform for themselves, or how they may make you look, which is a very selfish way of looking at things. If you, on the other hand, have a balance to say with the child, okay, academic education, we want you to achieve well, we want you to achieve, good results, but at the same time, let's go out on a Saturday and give out some sandwiches to the homeless people. Let's go out and do some socializing with your cousins, your uncles and aunties, so you know what relationships mean. Let's have proper conversations with families so you understand the dynamics of what family means, what relationships mean, how to hold conversation. These social skills. If they're not brought into the balance, then there's an imbalance. There's a big imbalance where if a child is continually being asked to focus on their education, who is that education ultimately going to benefit? That child.
Yes.
It's a very selfish way of looking at life.
I think there is an imbalance. I think I want to say there always has been for as long as I can remember. Somewhat it's getting better now. You know what?
From the people you've observed.
From the people that I've observed, and from this current generation of parents, if we can call them that, they're understanding that grades aren't everything.
When you say this current generation of parents, who are you referring to?
Well, the ones that have got children of that age group,
Which age group?
Coming out of school.
No, because you have
studies.
Okay, you have parents who are of a higher age and they've had children late.
Regardless of the the age of the parent right now, it's about the age of the children. So if you've got children who are, I don't know, a young teenager, for example, who are setting up their life, the platform, the foundations.
Yeah.
I think those children now, a small percentage of them have got it somewhat better than perhaps what we had. When we had to go through that, there was very few of us that could get away with failing at school. That could get away with, bad grades or bad focus or attention. It's getting marginally better, but it's still imbalanced. Just because, you see yourself.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying, and I can't remember who said this. It was a prominent religious figure who said, "Do not bring your children up as you were brought up by your parents, for they are being brought up for a different time." It reminds me of that, because for every generation, you have a different environment, and your parenting skills have to be conducive to that particular environment. It can't be detached. You can't use old school thinking and methodologies. Some of them will work.
No, I think you can.
I think some of it, like I said, some of it will work, but some of it won't work, because you have to understand the dynamics of the environment in which they're being brought up in comparison to the environment that you were brought up. Look at the difference in the way the social life is. Look at the way look at the way of life, how the ways of our lives have changed throughout just the last 20 years.
But are we not their environment?
I think we are, but we have to be conscious enough to understand that the environment has evolved and changed. If we're still in our own environment...
Again, I think we've overcompensated.
How?
Would you agree that majority of us were raised pretty strong? Handle our own, be able to do our chores, to be able to kind of learn respect and manners and everything else. We kind of came into
these were like
out of childhood a little bit equipped in order to take on the world, or at least
Well, some of us had to come out of childhood early, because of circumstances.
Yeah, but we could.
Yeah.
And we were always equipped for it, even those that didn't have to.
Do you think parenting is softer now? Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh, come on. Are you even going to suggest?
Am I even going to question it?
Are you even going to question that? Are you even going to suggest?
I'm trying to unpick the things in your mind to find out exactly where you're going with this. So you're saying that people definitely are across the board. Generally, parenting has become a lot softer,
which is beyond my understanding. If anything, and I don't want to be too controversial, but I do at the same time. It's easier now to be a parent than probably ever. If we're talking about, maybe financial standings.
In what way?
All sorts of ways.
Go on, give me an example.
All kinds of ways.
Give me an example.
Levels of poverty and stuff are lower. The facilities available, the support available.
Are they lower?
Well, yeah, I would say so.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
Depends on where you are.
What do you mean?
Depends on who you are, where you are, where you are in life, all sorts of things. Poverty aside, well, what was the next thing that you mentioned?
Everything, be it devices, be it technology, be it there's an app
Okay,
for
so
all kinds of
there's a
things.
technology that's made life easier in some regards, but has that not also made life tougher in some other regards, as a parent
if you let
or
it.
as for the children?
Yeah, but for the parents, in order to kind of be a parent, being a parent today is easier than it was, I don't know, for our parents 20, 30 years ago. Generally speaking, the odd parent may have it tougher. If there's a single parent or if there's a family going through a particular difficult time, I get it. There's always going to be exceptions. But generally speaking, it is easier, but we've made a hash of it. We make it seem so difficult because there's an imbalance. We overcompensate for, I'm going to say, just.
So your opinion on this matter is that parenting in theory has become easier, but the end results are worse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much summed it up. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.
So if that's the case, how are you measuring that?
How are you measuring?
Yeah, the results.
Well, the results are our society today.
Give me
results
example,
are ASBOs being issued to children. The results are levels of crime and bullying and vandalism and all this sort of stuff.
Do you not think that that existed to the same percentage kind of level before?
What do you think? Do you think 20 years ago you'd get as many?
Population was less. I mean, let's not talk numbers. Let's take about percentage.
No.
Number of the amount of crime per.
No. Okay. We're not a stats show, so we're not going to go into per capita or per anything. Yeah. A place like Burton or Derby or wherever you live. Yeah. There was roughly about the same number of people in town, or when you're living in your street or in your neighborhood. Yeah, there's new estates and stuff, but let's just assume within your 3 or 4 streets, you wouldn't very often see children committing crime or, vandalizing or speaking back to elders or, making eye contact with a police officer and saying, what are you going to do?
Those kind of things have definitely changed. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I'm not disagreeing. Those kind of things have definitely changed. I think more children have become courageous, but in the wrong ways.
I don't think that's courage.
It's foolish, but they've built the courage to actually say something in front of authority for a reason. It's still, but courageous in the wrong ways. It's still courage. It takes courage to do something like that, but in the wrong way. How do you? Here's my question for people who are going to be listening or watching. How do you ensure? What kind of things do you look out for in your children to ensure that you're on the right track in your parenting skills? What kind of things do you feel in current times are important for parents to try and visualize and understand when it comes to children and observing their children, to give them signs to say, you know what, this is going well, this parenting thing? What kind of things?
Again, it's going to vary. It is going to vary. Once we can get over these imbalances, I think our kids will do a lot better. Once we start to understand, there comes an age, 14, 15, 16, maybe slightly later for some, but generally 13, 14, 15, they kind of have an idea of where they want to go or what they want to do. Whether they, inevitably, whether they become good at it or not is to be seen later down the line.
In children, what do you think are the common, in your opinion, what do you think are the common issues today? Common across the board, generally, without sounding like we're stereotyping.
Well, we are. We're grumpy old men. Let's be honest. We're bald, we're fat, our hair's going white, but the truth is, a few of the issues today are we're unable to discipline our children. We're unable to instill in them respect, manners, courtesy, and general care. That's unconditional care almost. Everybody can teach their child to respect them back or their authority back. But we're not good enough at going above and beyond like our parents went. In our time, for example, if I was messing about on the street or in the next street or in the park, or I was, I don't know, picking fruit off the tree and throwing anything, if I was messing around and somebody on that street, an uncle or someone saw me and they gave me a clip around the ear saying, why are you knocking on doors and running away? Whatever it was, mischievousness. Yeah. You wouldn't go home and tell your dad.
Yeah, because you realized it was your own fault.
Yeah, because you know what's going to happen. If I got a clip around the ear from somebody down the street and I went home, said, Dad, Uncle
you'd
hit
get
me,
two more clips around the ear. But there's a deeper thing here. There's a more important thing here, is you understood that you did wrong. This is the difference. At that point when you got a clip around the ear by an uncle, you realized, hang on, I can't come home and tell my dad. It's because I know I did wrong, and my dad won't stand by me if he knows that I did wrong.
Yeah,
although nowadays you see parents, just because their child got told off by somebody older, they'll wage war on them.
How dare you?
How dare you? Even among siblings. So if, as an example, is if you've got a guy or a family, their child gets told off by their uncle, the brothers will start fighting over the kid. It's silly. But the important thing here is, at that point where you get a clip around the ear from an uncle, you realized you did wrong.
Yeah.
Nowadays, again, I don't want to stereotype, but I think now more and more people, from my observations, will find it more offensive that they got a clip around the ear by somebody outside of their...
Yeah, and that's where it comes. We come back to
there's admission that they did wrong, and the problem here is the lack of understanding that actually I did wrong.
Yeah,
that actually did wrong.
Where does that understanding come from? Where does this sort of sense of entitlement come from? We are instilling that in our kids.
Absolutely, I agree there. We don't often agree with many things, but that I agree. I think there's an issue with parents themselves with what they're teaching their kids passively.
Yeah.
If you think about parents confiding in a child about the other parent, oh, your father did this, and what are you teaching that child? Number one, you're instilling hatred in that child about the father.
Yeah.
Number two, you are showing that child that it's okay to blame others.
Yeah.
Think about where this is going. You're actually showing your child it's okay to blame others for the situation you're in. Rightly or wrongly, whether that parent, whether it's the father or the mother or whatever, there's an underlying issue here. And we're not teaching the child to think for themselves. It's easy to be authoritative or an authoritarian, to instill certain rules in the house. But how often do we get the children to think? It reminds me of, the Quran is very clear on this. It's always talking about afala ta'qilun, think, always asking the reader to think. We think education or educating our child is about telling them. We don't ask the right questions. And then if we're not asking the right question, we're not getting them to think for themselves. For me personally, there are a number of things which are indicators in terms of parenting to suggest to me whether there's something that I need to change with my parenting skills, or there's something that I need to do different with my kids. So one of the things I touched on earlier was the social skills.
Yeah.
Now, if a child is not displaying social skills, like when you got relatives come over and they leg it, the kid legs it, goes to the bedroom or goes to another room, this isn't a good thing.
No.
Because they're not learning how to socialize. Now, generally speaking, people who are successful in life, and when I say successful, I know it's a very subjective term, but I'm just saying generally who are doing well in life, they are team players. They know how to build a team around them. They know how to make use of the people who are around them. They're team builders, they're team players. They know how to socialize and can have conversations with different people. So these are the different kind of things that are instilled from a childhood stage, being sociable with people. How many times do you see that your brothers or sisters might come to a house, or you go to your brothers and sisters' house, and the kids aren't there to be
Not
seen?
there, yeah. You
Or
know
they're
they're home, but they're not there.
but they're not having a conversation with
But
you.
how has this gone so wrong? How
That
has it
comes down to
changed
that comes
so
down to
much?
parenting.
Look, you've got a set of parents, yeah, or you've got a generation of people who each one of them has been raised by the entire village. You know, when we say parenting, it was more than just mom or dad. It was the uncle down the street. It was the local shopkeeper. It was the local, policeman and milkman, and everybody
Yeah.
played a part in raising this child.
Yeah,
They all
because it's not
performed parenting duties.
on that child. Yeah,
And now the difference between an entire village raising a child, fast forward 20 years, there's one entitled child with an attorney at hand 24/7.
yeah,
And that's
Yeah.
the protective parent, the protective
yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
How dare you speak like that to my son? How
Yeah,
dare you do
yeah.
this and do that? And who
Yeah.
are you to? And the child sees this.
Yeah,
The children now will come home and say, oh, the teacher told me off. It wasn't really my fault. It was everybody's fault, but I got told off a bit more, or I got the detention. And more often than not, that parent will march down to school the next day
yeah, and have it out
have
with
a
the
word.
teachers. Yeah,
Before they've had it out with the teachers, they've ranted in front of their child. She did what? Your teacher did what? How dare this be? I'm going to go there. I'm going to go.
yeah.
And the child, you're not aware of what exactly this child is picking up.
I've
has
seen this
learned-
happen firsthand, where a child may have done something wrong.
Yeah.
As a governor at school, you get to
You'll see it all the time,
you'll
yeah.
see. I've seen like certain children who have done wrong in school, right? They'll come back and they've been disciplined. They've maybe got extra time at school, detention or whatever. By the time they get to their parents and explain to the parents why they were late, that, it wasn't my fault, somebody did this and it's the teachers, whatever, that parent has actually sworn towards the teacher in front of the child. Now think about the
Wow.
message you're giving to this child. They've blamed everybody under the sun except the child himself. What are you teaching that child passively by doing stuff like that? Shabana says the Ottoman schooling system focused on the individual strengths of each student and helped nurture that. You can't teach a fish to fly nor a bird to swim. Is it Einstein who said if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree,
climb
you'll
a
think
tree.
it's stupid all its life?
Yeah.
It's interesting. May says, as a mum of 3 in the 50s now and 7 grandchildren, you never switch off from being a good parent and guide. They have to have boundaries set, as it helps them in later life respect themselves and their children. Our village copper would give you a clip around the ears. You didn't do it again. Laugh out loud. Which is what I'm saying.
Very true.
There's collective parenting going on.
There was nothing wrong with that. I think, generally speaking, as a generation, we didn't turn out that bad.
But the thing is now, because of the scares around how you discipline a child and safeguarding issues and laws against smacking children and whatnot, what was was it Australia or which country was it recently who've outlawed the smacking of a child altogether?
Australia
Something-
or Scotland? I'm not sure.
Not Scotland, was it?
So,
Saw something recently. Sahil says it's important to raise children with the correct morals and discipline from an early age. They need to learn right from wrong, because when they have a free reign as they grow, you hear too often when they reach teenagers that the parents say they won't listen anymore. Well, why should they now, when at the time they needed to, nothing was done? Scotland, thank you, Justice. Just clarify
right
this.
from wrong is compromised as soon as you give that child an attorney on speed dial. If you're going to stick up for your kid, no matter what.
Yeah, it works the other way though as well. The child has an attorney or the other end of the line. If they feel that they're not getting what they want, they're threatened. I'm going to call.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But that's also us though, isn't it? Okay, look, we're the parents. We're soft, we're whatever. But we're also the people making the rules for other parents. Let's not forget that. We talk about the law as if it's some kind of alien thing that's just been shoved upon us. It's not. We made those laws. Okay, each and every parent didn't physically play a part in it, but it's our peers and our colleagues and our generation that have come along and said, hang on, you shouldn't really clip your child around the ear. Hang on, the teacher can't really speak to a kid like that. Oh, you can't. If you're going to break up a fight between two kids, you can't. You have to stand back and say, now, children, rather than pull them by the ear and separate them.
Yeah, I think
closest
some things have gone far. Well, let's leave that to a side. Let's stick back to the parenting aspects themselves. I know it's indirectly related with how teachers and what their people outside your immediate, parents are allowed to do and not allowed to do. From a parent's perspective, there's certain things, again, coming back to the recognizing what's happening within the children's lives and how their behavior is and how they are being brought up. What kind of changes need to be made? We touched on the social skills. The second thing that I wanted to mention was kids taking their own initiative on doing things. One of the things that I'm very conscious about is when a child is only following instructions, my concern is how much are they actually developing into their own skin? Are they taking initiative to do their own thing? If you have a child who takes initiative to do stuff that they want to do, to me that shows they have willpower. They have some kind of courage. If they've got courage to do what they want to do rather than just following instructions, what's really sad? You've got some parents who are so controlling that they'll knock on the bloody bathroom door just to make sure they're okay in there. Do you know what I mean? Or open the bathroom. What are you doing? Oh, I just want to see if it's all right. What do you think he's going to be doing in there? Do you know what I mean?
We all know a parent or two like that.
But if the parents are micromanaging and going into so much control, they need to relax. They need to let their kids make some mistakes. If you don't do, you're not going to do it wrong. If you don't do it wrong, you're not going to eventually do it right.
Yeah, of course.
Children need to be nurtured. My opinion is they need to be nurtured in so many different ways. They need to be given exposure to not just knowledge, but experiences as well.
Yeah.
Experiences, things like experience of travel, experience of having responsibilities, experience of looking after other people. And if they don't have that experience, how are they going to develop into something other than, what they call in Punjabi, kitabi kira?
Yeah. And I think, what, we're bordering on neglect. When you fail to teach your child or your children a decent moral compass, then that falls into neglect. In later life, that's going to bite them.
That is also a form of neglect, isn't it?
That's
neglect, because you see, there are legal things that a child is, a parent. Did you know? I was looking on the government website. What's legally required from a parent? What are the legal responsibilities of a parent? So if you go onto gov.uk, the two main things that they've mentioned first is provide a home for the child and protect and maintain the child. That's very broad terms, right? It says you're also responsible for disciplining the child. Yeah.
Okay.
Choosing and providing for the child's education, agreeing to the child's medical treatment, naming the child and agreeing to any change of name, and looking for the child's property. Looking after the child's property.
I'll tell you what my issue with that entire statement is, or the whole idea of that, is the government telling us what parenting is and what a parent's rights are over their own child. Just think about that for a second.
I am. Well, I'm going to defend that for a second. I'm just going to defend that. And the reason I'm going to defend it is because it sets out perimeters in case there is child neglect. And just not telling you what you do over and beyond this, but it's giving you the basic minimum what you're supposed to be doing. So that if a parent is neglecting genuinely, if you've got people who've got children and they're genuinely neglecting those children, and they're not giving them the basics in life, then that becomes a legal matter. In which case, that child is then protected. Do you know what I mean?
Read between the lines.
No, I know where you're going. I know what you're saying.
Snuck in by child services and child protection and government this and everything. Look, at the end of the day, your child is your
Would you
own.
say the government rather not have anything in place?
I would say that
What's the
Look,
alternative? Think about it.
Of course, there's an alternative. Is mind your own damn business.
I
will raise my child. Now, they could have stopped short at where we stopped for thousands and thousands of years. If you kick your kid out on the street, or you abuse them, or they're malnourished or something, there's got to be intervention.
Well, how are they going to intervene if it's completely left down to you?
What do you mean?
If there's no legal framework to define,
This isn't legal framework.
No,
this is
you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I would rather have the government tell me how to raise my kids. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there needs to be a basic minimum standard by which all parents need to comply to a degree where a child is not neglected, which results in harmful acts. Maybe, otherwise children, anything can happen to the child, and how who's to intervene?
Nobody's denying that. The problem now is the government have more rights over your child than you do as a parent. In fact, most kids nowadays will be able to dictate to their parents what their parents can and can't do, can and can't say, can and can't stop them from. That's an issue. Stop short at, if you abuse your child, if you neglect your child, if you don't feed your child, if you don't clothe your child, we're going to step in. That's normal. That's human, isn't it?
No, but you're missing the point. I know it's human, but it can only have action taken against if you've breached something, a rule, a law, legislation. Yeah?
Okay.
If you haven't, then no one can do anything to you. You can neglect that child. You can abuse that child in all sorts of ways if you don't have a basic minimum framework. Well, like I said,
again,
I'm
we're saying the same thing. The basics should be there.
Now, where do you stop?
That's where you stop at the basic.
What's the basic?
Okay. If you've got a 5-year-old child,
you're going very specific now. That's not basic. So if you're going to go down that road of specifying age, if you look at what I just read out, which were 5 bullet points or 6 bullet points, you're going to go way beyond that line. Think about how broad these statements are.
I think those basic bullet points that you read out more than cover it. There's probably something you could take out of those as well, but generally speaking, they more than cover it.
You neglected the whole thing earlier on.
No, it's with the whole idea of the government thinking that they know what's best for your child better than you do. Look,
I agree. Whenever we talk, there to a degree.
Whenever we talk, we never speak for the 100% because you're not going to cover anyone in anything.
Of course,
in anything. So generally, when I make a statement or an opinion or an observation, it will cover 80, 90, 95, 98%.
In your mind?
Well, I'm sure
we can't take statistics.
I'm sure some kind of statistics could prove it. What percentage of children are kicked out on the street or, physically abused or not fed or, these things. So 90+% of parents are fulfilling their obligations and want to raise good kids.
Well, you'd be hopeful of that, yeah. Even if it's there or thereabouts in figures, you'd hope that figure is pretty much there.
Way more than 90%.
You'd hope for that. I would say so. But what I'm saying is, for those who do neglect, for those who do abuse their children,
you've got to have something in place.
You've got to have something in place.
But is switching the internet abuse is when saying when a boy can't be a girl or something, is that abuse? Nowadays, that's abuse. Nowadays, that's taking away their rights or their human whatever it is, and it's just gone ridiculous. You can't clip your child around the ear. You can't, let alone an uncle who sees your kid up to no good or shoplifting or whatever else. Nobody can say nothing to that child. I think police on the street struggle to arrest children because they have to be careful about what's being recorded or what's going to be said or what's going to stand in court and all of that. Teachers should not, and I can't overemphasize this enough, teachers should not be scared of their pupils.
Yeah, I agree.
If anything,
I agree.
It should be the other way around.
Well, it's like Badi Yasir says, and nowadays, you'd be taught to respect your teachers more than your parents. Your parents will say to you, make sure you respect your teachers more than you even respect us. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're teaching you how to be successful in
Yeah.
life, in this life and the hereafter,
Yeah.
whichever way you look at it, because they are giving you that.
Tell me that's not parenting. You know, your teachers, are they not parenting? I would say they are.
Yeah.
But they have no rights. They can't even speak to you beyond a certain manner and all these things.
But I think we've got to be very careful here, because from a teacher's perspective, you see that there have been instances where, to a degree, teachers have gone way beyond their duties of disciplining children and lashed and beat children to the degree that they've died. And we think about the cases in Pakistan, for example. So many cases that I can just think of off the top of my head, where the teacher has abused or beat, or where does that stop? Because yes, you have that element of respect, but there also needs to be a framework by which you prevent from the child from being abused, or
So for that 1% of, and it's not even 1%, but we're going to generalize a little bit, or overemphasize, 1% of teachers who are, I don't know, too strict, too tough, whatever, is taken away control, discipline, powers, whatever, from the 100%. There's an imbalance. We respected our teachers because we were taught to respect them.
Yeah.
And with respect came a certain level of, you wouldn't want to be a failure in front of your teachers. You wouldn't want your teacher to ring your parents and say, this kid, man, insolence or this, that, or the other. It's not fear.
You'd want to make your teacher proud.
Yeah.
I mean, Razwan,
and that meant something to you.
Is a classic example. Razwan says kids shouldn't be scared of their teachers. They should respect them. But with respect to the elders comes compassion to the youngster.
Yeah. This is it. And if you don't have that balance, you're going to struggle. So coming back to it, I think parenting today, we've made it more hard, haven't we? It should get easier as we go on, because the facilities and everything else increase.
Look, you can only do with what's in your control.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the original question. Forget what the government is doing right now and how you feel about their interventions at the moment. I'm just talking about our own family, because I feel if you have brought up children in a way which is in a positive way, and you've got this positive aura within the household, and you've got that element of respect, you've got that element of nurturing, and you've got that element of love, compassion, and that drive to do good in life, then none of the other things are really going to matter, because it's all in your control. What you've controlled within yourself, and if you've done it well, it makes no difference. Of course there are going to be external influences, and of course there's going to be environmental influences, but what you instill in the children as a parent, let's not brush that away. Let's not start blaming everybody else for the failure of our children when we didn't even do our job properly. Let's look at us first. Let's look at how we parented or failed to parent our children. We can complain about the interventions from the authorities, or the lack of control that teachers have, or disciplinary procedures that they may be able to implement that they used to before. Let's start back at home. This topic is about parenting.
It does start to, once we get over the fact of how soft we are, then once we fix that, we fix within our own house, then we can look at other factors, outside factors.
So I'm going to ask you again then the same questions. What do you recognize in your children to give you indications that this child is being parented by me properly? What are the signs that you look for? How do you see that you're doing it? How do you measure your own success as a parent?
Honestly, even for the same parent, it's probably going to vary from child to child.
Of
because
course,
you're going to understand. I could have 5 kids, and my definition of success for each of them
is going to be different.
Will be different.
No, I'm not saying that child is successful at certain things. Nah.
No,
that's different.
Success in raising them, having raised them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we should even call it a success. I'm saying that you're doing okay, a good job. You're thinking about the different things. What are the different things a parent should be thinking about when raising a child?
The gist of it is to teach them how to be a good human being.
Okay.
For every parent, that's going to vary. Some people will rate confidence very high. Some people will rate compassion very high, caring for others, putting others first, respect, discipline, all of these things. I think they're all important. Depending on the child, you'll know what that particular child struggles with. Some kids struggle with confidence or anxiety or, speaking and these things. That's your aim. Now you know where the goalposts are. You know what you have to do as a parent and how you have to parent this child in order to give him the best chance in life.
You said him. I'm assuming you're thinking about a specific child at this stage.
Him or her.
No, I'm just thinking, because when people talk about these things, they usually have certain people in their mind that think about, what do different people require from me as a parent, or what different children of mine require from me as a parent. I think there are several things. I mean, that's basic etiquettes in life, I think, or basic qualities within human beings that everybody should possess anyway. Yeah, I agree that for me personally, the quality of being a good human being outweighs the quality of being a highly educated person.
Yes. Yeah, but highly educated is nor here nor there. I think we need to get rid of that anyway. We need to, honestly.
No, but for some people it is. For some people it is. I think the ability to think for themselves is better than getting high grades in being able to regurgitate information parrot fashion.
By miles. By absolute miles. If you can problem solve, if you can use initiative, if you can figure things out for yourself, and you grow up with those kind of skills, but you can't memorize a paragraph in a textbook, it really doesn't matter.
Adila mentions a very important point. She says at the end of the day, the most important thing is being a good role model for your kids and just teaching them how to be a good person, regardless of things such as education. The thing is, though, Adila, how is one being a good role model? The old adage, do as I say and not as I do, comes to mind. A lot of people expect their children to just do as they say, but not as they themselves are doing. We need to understand that we are always educating our children or people around us.
They learn more from
seeing and observing
what we do rather than what we say. And I think a lot of parents are ignorant to this. If your child can see that you're a family man or a family woman, or you're not so self-centered, you're generally in your everyday life, you're putting other people first, they'll pick up on that. They will, whether they inherit those same kind of instincts or not, but they'll see it.
They'll see it. And because they'll see it, it will be far more of an important lesson and ingrained in them than you just telling them about how good it is to be helping others or sacrificing certain things, but not to a degree. There needs to be a balance as well. You teach the children a kind of a balance, and how much to sacrifice of oneself in return for another's ease or pleasure. Do you know what I mean?
When you say balance, what do you mean?
Well, we have to look after ourselves as well. You have to learn, as good as and nice it is to say yes to people, we have to learn how to say no and when to say no.
Okay.
You can't always be a people pleaser all your life.
I don't think a people pleaser even comes into it. I don't think we've even touched upon that.
I know, but what I'm saying is, you asked the question, I'm answering in terms of what I was thinking when I mentioned it, that the balance is that there are people, I mean, I've seen people within my own family, like extended family or siblings or whatever, who will go out of their way for people who matter less than the people who matter more.
Are there people who matter less or more?
That's a good question. I think you know where I'm coming from, though.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you know where I'm coming from, though. When it comes to helping people, if somebody needed, I don't know, let's just say it was financial help, as an example, there are more likely to say yes to somebody from outside the family than they are to somebody within the family.
See, I've noticed the opposite of that also.
I've noticed both, but I'm saying there is the situation.
I'll tell you what the issue is overemphasizing the whole blood is thicker than water narrative is also an imbalance, will cause an imbalance.
I agree.
Between a close family member needing I don't know, a Ferrari on their
Well,
wedding
that's a
day.
luxury. I'm
No,
talking
but-
about basic necessities.
But when it comes to basic necessities, yeah, you're
I
right.
feel
if,
there's
if
an-
it's like for like,
Yeah,
then you start from home.
I feel there's an obligation, there's a duty.
Mhm.
It's not just a favor. It's an obligation. It's a duty. That's just the way I think.
Well,
But
that's what we're taught, isn't it? That's what we're raised, be it, in accordance to faith or our parents' teachings and stuff. We're taught, and I know it's a saying that charity starts at home, but home is beyond your four walls. Home is your neighbors.
absolutely,
Home is your
I
immediate
agree.
family. This is home.
I agree.
But again, there's got to be a balance. If there's somebody without food, but then there's your close, family member without, I don't know, like a one step downgrade of broadband or something.
I'm just going to give you a small example. If somebody who within the neighborhood wants, I don't know, a lift somewhere, and you are, you should do everything you can to arrange a lift. I'm not
Okay.
saying that you shouldn't, but if your own brother asks for a lift, you just kind of ask somebody else.
No, that's wrong.
This is what I'm referring
like
to.
for like, it should be
Yeah,
the
this is
same.
what I'm referring to.
I tell you what the problem we have now is.
But what's the child going to learn from that?
Well, that's it. The child is going to learn. The child probably won't learn the blood ties. The child will learn favoritism, or shunning of certain family members or stuff like that. It's a mixed bag. You're really not setting a good example if that's what you're doing. Again, it's each person's interpretation of parenting, and that's I've actually seen a lot of the opposite of what you're saying.
Ali, when it comes to whatever we show children, we have to remember one thing: our present is their past. Our present right now will become their past. What children see in their parents and their family and their siblings, what will they remember when they look back in the future? Because this will be their past. What memories will we have created? What lessons will we have drawn for them? I think the nooks and cranny of it is this, that if we're not able to provide joyful, happy, loving, nurturing, educational, inspiring kind of memories for the children when they think back at how their childhood was, then that in itself is a measure of whether, we did well or not.
But see, the problem...
That's one of the measures, I would say.
Yeah, another problem with that is people...
Unless they're obviously comparing their children...
happiness and things first. So they'll think, you know what, I can't discipline my child because that'll ruin his day. Or he'll post a bad status, or he'll rant or whatever, or he'll have a tantrum. And honestly...
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I
shouldn't.
I don't.
Happy times will come. Yeah, happy days.
Well, you see, again, it
All
comes
of
down. Again, Ali, I'd say that comes down to the way we've parented the kids. If you've had that kind of relationship with a child where they have that level of respect for you, they won't post anything like that in the first place. Even if you've had to discipline them, even if they disagree with your decision, even if they disagree with your way of looking at things, and even if they disagree with all that, they will not respect.
But what we're saying is we're going 2 steps back. We're going back in time. We're saying, how do you do that? You have to go against the grain a little bit. That's all part of parenting. You cannot be their best friend every single day of their lives.
Well, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, I don't know whether this the authenticity of this narration and where it comes from, but I've always heard this and read this so many times. He said that in the first 7 years of your child, play with them. In the second 7 years of your child, teach them. In the third seven years of your child, advise them. And then the rest of your life, you become their friends.
Yeah.
So there are different phases for children where you have to play a different
to be
role.
able to switch it up.
But I tell you what, within those roles, you have to mix and match a little bit. I remember telling you about the way my family is and my kids are at home. Isa is a classic example of one of my sons. He's always had this kind of leadership quality about him, and his younger siblings actually look up to him. And he's, mashallah, he's doing well in that regard. And suddenly I found that all the kids in the house have that same level of respect for me as well. For example, if I come home, I have this specific chair which I sit on. If I just walk into the living room, whoever's on it, they'll get up.
Mm.
I don't have to say anything,
Mm.
you know. And it's those kind of qualities which I think they go far without. I mean, I don't have to say anything. You know, when I feel that a child, in fact, not when I feel, every child deserves to be loved, right? So love needs to be shown, you know, and it's not just spoken about, right?
In every form.
In every form, verbally, physically, you know, you give them a hug, you give them a kiss, you give them, you know, gifts and whatever there's a balance in
you
everything.
give them discipline. Tough
Yeah,
love is a
tough
form
love,
of love.
tough love, exactly.
You know, and it's probably one of the most important, because
definitely.
they're not going to remember what you said. They're going to remember what you did, more so in years to come.
And more importantly, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
There's a saying, isn't there? People will remember what you said, and people remember more what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Made them feel. This is it. Why did we become so soft?
I don't think we. I don't think I am.
Okay.
I have my times of disciplining, and I have my times of showing love and nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah, I'm quite blessed to have what I feel is a balanced, healthy environment in the house.
So, judging your own kind of parenting observations, would you say you've done it right? You've done well?
I feel I've done what I could do. I think it's always a work in progress, and I feel education matters a lot for me. I mean, I don't mean academic.
When you
education,
say education, we're talking out of school. Okay.
I mean, for educating your child matters a lot from you as a parent. I think nurturing a child takes many different ways, which is why I was talking about the social skills. I was talking about them taking their own initiative, observing whether they are taking their own initiative in certain aspects or not in life. You know, can they share things? If they're not sharing, they've become, you know, they're developing selfish traits. And how much are they really going to sacrifice of their own, you know, for the benefit?
It's an insight into that child's future, isn't it?
Yeah. Are they willing to learn? You know, are they trying new things? You know, who are they inspired by? How are they inspired? You know, how original are they, or true they are to themselves? This is a very important thing. If a child isn't behaving true to themselves, then that's a concern for me. They're going to become very cosmetic, in my opinion.
Is there any elements from perhaps your own childhood or that which you observed around you that you would think, nah, today that doesn't wash. We shouldn't have done it like that? How right did the last generation get it?
I think they got it really, really good. They did really, really well for the situation they were in and the environment they were living in. But I don't think everything they did then would be conducive to the environment we're living in now.
Because we changed the environment.
Yeah.
We ruined it. We're so sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
So we've reached 8 o'clock already, and we could have continued as usual. We have decided to make this a two-part series because there's lots to talk about. Today was about parenting, and you know what? I have so much more to say on this topic, but we need to tie this in with the topic for next week, which is about being the child and what kind of relationship we have with our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than the parenting element, is from being the child. What kind of child are we towards our parents?
Yeah,
you know?
how were we parented? And then obviously we're in the middle. We're very much in the middle. So if we look down, we have our children. If we look up, we have our parents.
Yeah.
And we have obligations to both. Hence, you know, this is going to be like a two-part show. And I think the second one is no less important, if not more important.
I think there's a lot of importance in discussing how, or the kinds of relationships people have with their parents, because that too has changed. A lot of that has deteriorated, in my opinion, in terms of how children.
You know, whichever way you look at it, Maj, it's us that managed to get it wrong. So
you know
wrong.
What? There will always be. I'm
wrong.
not sure it's always going to be wrong. What I'm saying is there's always going to be a more there are going to be more options now. What options you choose may feel the right option for you or that individual at the time. We don't know what they're going through or why they decided to do what they did. We just observe from the outside. But we don't know what's going on in real terms. We can only form opinions and judge by the apparent. Yeah.
The apparent is that something worked for hundreds of maybe thousands of years, and suddenly it's all about how we feel and how about
The problem is
situation is and how circumstances
the problem
are.
is we used to judge by the apparent, but today we now judge by the apparently.
I like that. I think you should pen that somewhere.
I'll
That's
pen
brilliant.
that one.
But yeah, I know. I look forward to next week's show. I think it'll be a very interesting one.
Great. In that case, thank you everybody for joining us once again in today's show. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, then we'll look out for the next show, which will be live again on a Tuesday, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Beardos Media. And those of you who are watching live, as always appreciate your contributions. They're always interesting to read. And we shall, with time, move on to the next one. For tonight, it's a goodbye.
Sure.
Take care.